Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the El Cajon City Council meeting. We have resumed our normal meeting format, and to comply with state laws, we invite the public to join us in person or to make comments about any items on the agenda, including public comments. The meeting is now called to order, and I'll ask the city clerk to call the roll.
All council members are present.
Okay. Would you all please stand with me with the pledge of, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and remain standing for a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the September 28th, 2021 meeting and the agenda of the October 12th, 2021 meeting in accordance with state law, council, and housing authority policy. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, we have no changes to the agenda, but I'd like to make two announcements if I could at this time.
Please.
So first of all, as you all know, there was a horrific accident that occurred in Santee yesterday. You should be aware that 12 of our fire staff were those that showed up for that. Truck 6 was one of the first engines on scene, along with the Santee fire engine. So we were actually taking lead on the fire suppression, and then more vehicles got called in for the second and third alarm. So I've had a chance to speak with the majority of the staff that was out there, and they shared with me how horrible the scene was. But I'm grateful that we have amazing staff that can go not only serve our residents, but also serve the residents of our neighboring cities. On a little bit lighter note, on last Saturday, we celebrated Foodie Fest. And as part of that, there was a competition, a friendly competition between council members and their baking skills. So, and I'm going to invite Frank Carson to come down and announce the winner of that and present a trophy.
That's a good trophy.
All right, so let me show the audience there the Foodie Fest Best Cookie Award trophy. It was a close competition, and we had to kind of dance around when we could actually offer the cookie tasting for some administrative reasons, but we do have a winner, and it was a very close vote. It was this person won, this elected official won by one vote, so it was a tight race, and this award goes to Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah.
So if we had honorable mentions, the other two awards would go to Steve Goebel for the Close But No Cigar, and the third place winner would go to the trophy would go to Mr. Ortiz for the boldest move. Young man, you either live or die by the pumpkin, and in this case, you died by the pumpkin cookie. So that is a pretty bold move. So impressive.
Michelle, what kind of cookie was it?
So I had a couple of entries. I had a pumpkin chocolate chip, and I had a Kentucky brownie bomb bar. And I understand those bomb bars were the bomb, and people were drooling. All I want is my plastics back in my bag, man. That's it.
I think they're on our floor, so we have.
I'm just kidding, but I do want them back. No, they were. The house smelled really good, and I'm glad that everybody enjoyed them. And thank you very much. This is quite an honor, and I can put it up on my kitchen wall now.
Well, that's great. Oh, Councilmember Kendrick wants to say something.
Well, I'd like to welcome all the high school students to this meeting. Hopefully, you won't be bored to tears. We have a lively. We'll probably have a lively discussion on item number 12. I had to do the same thing as you for my civics class in my senior year, and I came to the El Cajon City Council meeting, and everybody was screaming and hollering about signs. It was very raucous, and and exciting. But I just want to let you know, I never thought I'd end up here, so any one of you can end up doing that. You know, and the other thing is when you come up to speak, never be nervous because everybody wants you to look good. So if you have anything you want to say, you can fill out the card and hand it to the city clerk and tell us what you think. The public's our eyes and ears. We can't be everywhere all the time. But I want to thank you so much, even though I know you're forced to come here by your teacher. Thanks for coming.
Great to see you guys. All right, council, any agenda changes? No. Okay. So that brings us to proclamations. We have 2 proclamations on today's agenda. I'd like to invite Director of Community Development, Anthony Shute, to introduce the Planning Commission, who will accept the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have 3 members of our city's Planning Commission here. We have Tony Sotile and Paul Circo and Elizabeth Valles. And Mr. Mayor, you have the proclamation.
Yeah, there's lots of whereases and what fors, but at the end it says, now, therefore, I, Bill Wells, Mayor of the City of El Cajon, together with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 to be Community Planning Month in the City of El Cajon in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month. Congratulations. And gentlemen, you want to come up and make a speech, a short speech, but short one, Tony. Come up to so we can see you on TV. And
it's been an honor to serve the City Council and also the community at large. And it's not an individual job. There's Commissioner Circo, Commissioner Valles, Commissioner Rose, and also Commissioner Pollack-Rude. I'd like to recognize them as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to serve.
And we also have Elizabeth Valles here.
Yes, I'm the newest member on the commission, and I have really enjoyed the last few months and learning the process and really getting to have some input and see the great projects that are happening in El Cajon and just really see how I'm excited for the future of El Cajon and the direction that everything's going. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
You know, we've got a lot of young people here. Can you explain to them what the Planning Commission does?
Oh, thank you for putting me on the spot there, Mayor Wells, as the newbie. So what we do is that there are projects that are brought to the commission, and we review those projects based on recommendations that staff has done all the research, and it's really exciting. We are just kind of another set of eyes as the community members that are looking at those projects and deciding, is this the right thing for our community as someone who lives here? And then maybe we'll have some additional input that a staff member may or may not have thought of. And it really has been, it's a great opportunity and a nice way to serve your community. Something to think about for you guys in the future.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And Paul Circo. You're the old hand. Well, not as old hand as Tony, I guess.
Not quite.
You've been doing it for a while, though. How long have you been doing it now?
I think I've been on for 11 years. Wow. I think next year I have to re-up. And it's an appointed position. It's not an elected position. City Council interviewed us. It was the most terrifying event of my life, being interviewed in front of the City Council, in front of the other 9 people looking to fill that position. But it was really good. They asked great questions, and as a citizen representative, we get to voice our opinion. It doesn't have to follow all the legal guidelines, but then staff helps us fit that into the legal guidelines, and we get to help shape the policy on the zoning ordinance, at least as far as the state will allow us. And so we get to help steer the policy for our city, and the City Council has been very supportive of our decisions, and it's a really great partnership. So thank you for allowing us to serve.
Thank you. And thanks all of you for your time and efforts. It's a lot of work. I appreciate that. I think, three of us up here were on Planning Commission before, too. It's a common thing to do before City Council. Okay. Our next proclamation is for German American Month, and I'd like to invite Mike Anderson to the podium to accept this proclamation. Hey, Mike.
Hello, Mayor.
How did it all go?
It went really well. I've got the president of our club with us, Wendell Jenkins. So,
Yeah, please introduce everybody who's here.
just the two of us today. Everybody else is, we're tired of wearing the lederhosen and the dirndls, and maybe a little bit tired of all the beer and the food. So, I'm sorry, I didn't see Monica. Monica Palm is here.
I was going to say, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I saw three people, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, it was a good event. The numbers were down a little bit, not to be expected, especially that first weekend with the rain. We just missed the rain the second weekend, the really big, the lightning storm. But I think everybody was really, really happy to be back after a year, technically a 2-year layoff. So, and next year will be our 50th anniversary. So we're gonna.
That'll have to be a big one.
Hope so. Yeah.
I'm here especially to give some thanks. First of all, I would like you to next year or go back to any of our advertisement since we've had Oktoberfest in El Cajon. We have never advertised it as a German American Club's Oktoberfest. It's not. It is Oktoberfest in El Cajon, and it belongs to El Cajon. And thank you especially to our wonderful police department, fire department, the city and the city employees in general, you on the board as well, mayor's office. Thank you for helping us as a group make our El Cajon Oktoberfest a good one.
Well, we really love the Oktoberfest, and I don't think it's incorrect to say it's the best Oktoberfest in the county. So. Well, yeah. I was going to say that, but I didn't want you to get a big head. So
It was unarguably better than the one in Munich this year, because they didn't have theirs.
Hi.
Thank you again, Mr. Wells, Mayor. Bürgermeister of the city of El Cajon, thank you so very much for having us the Oktoberfest in El Cajon. Of course, it is conducted by the German American Society, but we had so many volunteers from this El Cajon area and also visitors from the El Cajon area and from the San Diego County, and I want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for putting on such a great event, and we look forward to it next year. Oh, wait a second. I forgot to read your proclamation. So now, therefore, I, Bill Wells, the mayor of the city of El Cajon, together with the city council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 to be a German American month. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Oh, I just have one thing to say for our friends from the German American Club about the Oktoberfest. Ausgezeichnet. It was really good.
All right. That brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion, according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any consent items? Mr. Goebel.
Item 10.
Item 10. And staff, do you wish to pull any consent items?
No, sir.
All right, let's take a look at item 10. Steve, I'll leave it with you.
Sounds good. Okay, this is kind of a big one because it really is about shifting over $20 million between fiscal years and projects and things. So I've got some questions on this. The first is the workers' compensation self-insurance adds $500,000 to the fiscal year to the fund. Now, is this an addition to a reserve, or is this just an allocation of a possible expense?
I'll have Mr. Shane respond if I get it wrong, but It's my understanding that we did not include an expenditure line item for these types of expenses, any claims that we were to receive. So this is throwing that in as part of the budget, so we actually have an actual line item we can draw down from if we have an expenditure related to a claim.
Okay. The state COPS grant. For some reason, they're making us prepay the new contract in the last month of this contract. Is there a reason why they're making us do that? It may not be a material amount. Is it like $85,000 or something like that? But it's unusual for them to say, yeah, the contract starts next month, but you got to make your first payment this month. Any idea why that's going on?
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council. My name is Clay Shane. I'm the Director of Finance for the City of El Cajon. It's my understanding that this is a result of the timing differences in the last payment on the last year of the original contract being late and the first payment on the second contract being exceptionally early, and it just happens to hit at about the fiscal year changeover. So overall, the entire duration of the two contracts together, it is not an additional payment. It's just, unfortunately, the timing results in two of them in one fiscal year.
So next fiscal year, we anticipate to have 11 payments, not 12.
Well, that's an annual payment, not a monthly payment. But if you think about it, the final year of the contract should theoretically not have a payment then.
Okay, great. Solar PV and battery storage improvements. This is about an $8 million project, potentially. I had a problem with the math on the bottom of page 69 of the staff report, maybe 68. It says phase 2 will be $5.1 million. But when I add the $3.235 million, the $100,000, and the $1.199 million, I'm coming up $500,000 short. Did I not read that correctly?
I believe as part of the allocation of the ARPA funding, $5.1 million was allocated as part of phase 2 of the solar project. However, one of the results of the money shuffling around between phase 1 and phase 2 that we're proposing this report is swapping general fund funding with the ARPA funding. So the $3.2 million in the original phase 1 is being replaced with $3.2 million of the ARPA 5.1.
Right.
In addition to that is $565,000 also. So phase 2 is actually not $5.1 million, but rather $4.5 million.
So you shifted $500,000 from phase 2 to phase 1.
Correct.
By making phase 1 $500,000 more.
Correct.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so that fixes that math issue. I think that was it. Yep. No, that's good. That explains everything. Thank you. Great. I'll make a motion to approve the consent item calendar as presented in the staff report.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. This brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, and successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to a statement or a question. An item, of course, may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any cards for public comment?
Yes, sir. We received one card from Peggy Bailey Jesu.
Hey, Peggy.
Hi, thank you and good afternoon, Mayor, council members, and staff. I just wanted to thank you all for your decision, the past agenda, in favor of my property, but also wanted to thank you and whoever's responsible for putting the speed monitor, I think it might be called, just by Mona, and I know that I was told that it would be there about 2 weeks so that they could get an idea of what was going on Chase. But I'm still committed to doing whatever I can as, for my neighborhood moving forward. But they're still speeding. And when you go to put in a traffic concern, you have to have a license number. And I'm not going to sit there and get license numbers, but I can tell you when I'm coming on Chase to go on to Mona, they are speeding right around me. So I don't know what else to do about reporting that besides taking a license number. But I just wanted to make that comment.
Well, it sounds like the traffic department's on the case, so.
Good. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Uh-huh.
All right. No more?
No more cards, sir.
There are no written communications and no public hearings on today's agenda. We have 2 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 12 is regarding the microenterprise home kitchen operations, and I'd like to ask staff to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As soon as I have a PowerPoint ready to go. Thank you. So city staff will be making a presentation on the microenterprise home kitchen operations program. County staff from Department of Environmental Health Quality is here, and thank you for coming, county staff. We appreciate you being here. They will also make a presentation, and then there'll be an opportunity, of course, for any questions and answers that the county is here to is available, and will answer any questions that the council may have. The city's presentation will be kind of high level, and the county's presentation a little more detailed. So just a brief background. In 2019, AB 626 went into effect, which allowed catering or restaurant uses from a place of residence. County legislators were given jurisdictional authority to adopt an ordinance and implement this bill. Subsequently, AB 377, a cleanup bill, was introduced to clarify and define language in AB 626. Specifically, it eliminated third-party deliveries. You can think of DoorDash or Postmates. Those restrictions, so it clarified that they can be used to pick up meals from home kitchens under the MECO program. So the legislation now allows a MECO to operate in any single-family or multifamily home, whether the residence is occupied by the owner or renter. Staff has been in conversations with the county over the last few months to try to better understand how this MECO program could work. The legislation allows the county to opt into the program, so there's no requirement for the county to opt in. They can choose to opt out. Should the county board opt in, then all cities within the county are subject to the program and do not have the ability to regulate the use. And the county is the regulator of a MECO program. MECOs are subject to an annual registration and inspection by the Department of Environmental Health Quality. They may be issued or they may obtain an alcohol license from ABC and serve alcohol on site if the operators operate in a restaurant from their home. No city permit or approval is required, and no land use restrictions are available by the city. Each MECO is allowed up to 30 meals per day, but no more than 60 a week. Annual sales cannot exceed $50,000, and a MECO can hire 1 employee. City staff does have concerns about MECOs if they were to operate in the city. City staff is concerned about potential traffic, noise, odors, smoke, food safety, although the city doesn't regulate food safety, wastewater, so fats, oils, and greases that are put into the city sewer system, potential vermin, and the change in residential character if there were multiple MECOs in a single block or in a cul-de-sac. and then what kind of code enforcement impacts that could be on city resources. So basically this is the end of the city's presentation, just kind of really high level. The real details are in the county's presentation, so I'll ask that the county's presentation be made available. And then they will present. We ask that the council feel free to ask any questions of the city staff as well as the county staff, and then direct the staff to draft a letter to the County Board of Supervisors indicating the City Council's position on the MECO program.
Come on up.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Heather Bonomo, and I'm the Director of Environmental Health and Quality for the Department of Environmental Health. And I'm here today at your request to provide a little more information about the MECO program. So next slide, please. Let's start with a little bit of background. The California Retail Food Code first allowed home-based operations with the introduction of cottage food operations in 2013. Cottage food is limited to non-potentially hazardous foods such as cookies and cakes. In 2019, microenterprise home kitchen operations, which I'm going to refer to as MECOs, MECOs are a new type of food operation that was introduced into the Retail Food Code, and it was more similar to an in-home mini restaurant. At that time, when it was first introduced, individual cities had the option to opt in if they wanted this program for their community or not. And at that time, with the first iteration of the bill, there were quite a few food safety concerns. Later that year, 377, an urgency bill, was adopted, and this modified MECOs to address many of the food safety concerns that were first identified, and it made the governing body of the enforcement agency, which is the County of San Diego, the authority to opt in for the entire region. And at this time, there are currently 7 jurisdictions in the state of California that have adopted MECO programs. Next slide. So as mentioned, the current code language puts the authority in the hands of the Board of Supervisors as the governing body of the local enforcement agency. If they opt into the program, it would be for the entire county, and individual cities do not have the ability to opt in or opt out. It's important to note that while the legislation was moving forward through the process in Sacramento, the county advocated for the bill to be amended and allow local jurisdictions to decide if MECO was right for their community and provide them the ability to opt in or opt out. We also encourage cities to do the same in speaking up regarding this element of the bill. However, the author did not take the amendments. The county took an official position of concern and again coordinated and encouraged cities in our region to do the same. The legislation was enacted with the language that requires the County of San Diego to make the decision for all cities in our region, and these are the current parameters of state law that we need to abide by. Next slide, please. I think I went out of order. Can you go to the what is a MECO slide? Sorry about that. There we go. What is a MECO? So the California Retail Food Code establishes requirements, and these cannot be modified. A MECO, as I mentioned, is a home restaurant, and unlike cottage food, they're not restricted to the types of foods that they could cook, apart from some riskier foods such as oysters. The resident can serve up to 30 meals a day or 60 meals in a week, and there's a maximum gross annual sales of $50,000. Customers can dine in the home, they can pick it up to go, or they can receive delivery. A health permit is required prior to operating, and health inspections are limited to 1 inspection a year unless there is a complaint or concern for foodborne illness, at which time the Department of Environmental Health and Quality could conduct an investigation. Next slide. Okay. The current law preempts certain land use requirements, and restrictions cannot be placed on MECOs. If the county were to authorize MECOs, they would become a by right use. No CEQA analysis, discretionary permit, or public notice would be required. Similar to home occupations, MECOs would be allowed within any residence in the county. MECOs can operate outside of their home as well, including serving food and preparation of food using barbecues or other similar techniques. From a compliance standpoint, the law does not allow for signage, and municipalities could pursue violations related to their noise ordinances and nuisance ordinances. I'm off again. I don't know what happened. Sorry. Could we go to the slide that talks about regulatory oversight? Here we go. All right. The Department of Environmental Health and Quality has regulatory oversight of the violations of the California Retail Food Code, and the local municipality has the regulatory oversight of the land use items as they pertain to that jurisdiction's local ordinances. Next slide. The MECO law provides a potential increase in the opportunity for people from a wide variety of backgrounds to start their own restaurants, which can bring in economic benefits to the community. MECO can provide food justice to areas such as food deserts where prepared, wholesome, and nutritious foods are not readily available for purchase. The MECO law also builds on the farm-to-table movement to bring locally produced foods to communities and provides an option for the existing cottage food operators to expand their business by adding additional food items. Next slide. Based on feedback from our working meetings with local municipal partners, some potential concerns have been identified, including traffic, parking, noise, fire risks, the potential for increase to fats, oils, and grease into the wastewater systems, ADA accessibility, and the ability of a MECO to obtain an ABC license. Next slide. On September 15th, the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously and directed the Department of Environmental Health and Quality to return to the board in 120 days with an ordinance to authorize MECOs. Also, they directed us to conduct community outreach and local municipality outreach and implement an educational program for MECO operators. Regarding programmatic options, the state law limits what can be modified in a local ordinance. So as we return back to the board, there are really only 9 categories of program options that could potentially be addressed. And those are the number of home food operations allowed per home, family member clarification, defining allowable food storage areas, timing to obtain the required food safety certificate, next slide, meal service volume, the ability to restrict food service to takeout or delivery, reduced inspection frequency to less than 1 inspection per year, defining how potable water standards will be demonstrated, and for local zoning ordinances, potential ability to redefine your nuisance ordinance. Next slide. That's the end of our presentation for today. We're available for questions. I do want to just correct one quote that was docketed in the staff report for the agenda that indicated the Department of Environmental Health said that staffing would be a challenge. We're not an authority over the staffing for the city of El Cajon, nor do I have an opinion over your staffing choices. And so that was a city quote, and I just wanted to clarify that was not the Department of Environmental Health and Quality. I'm available for questions.
Okay, who'd like to start? I'm sure we all do. I'll save mine to the end. Michelle?
Okay, I have a couple of questions here. So it went pretty fast, both the city and the county presentation. There's a lot of information there. So are we not allowed to opt in or opt out?
That is correct. The city, according to the state law, the County of San Diego, as the governing authority over this program, has to make the decision to opt in for the entire region.
Okay, so we lose control.
Yes, it is the county's authority.
And the next one, let's see. And these are kind of random because I just scribbled them down. So why only no more than 1 health visit per year? I mean, the health department should be checking on food preparation, kitchens, catering, various restaurants, and like only 1 visit per year, and then it's being arranged. So the kitchen, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I've worked in kitchens before, and I've worked in catering, and I know that sometimes things get out of control. You set up a meeting and like, oh, hurry up and clean up because the inspector's going to be here. But for the rest, 364 days out of the year, it's a disaster. How is that I mean, how does that really help the customers who would like to participate, or buy food from these people, but there's no guarantee, there's no safety?
Yes, the limitation of the inspection being to one time a year and having to be pre-arranged was set in state law. That was not set by the county.
Okay.
However, the county does have the ability to go back out and do an investigation if there is a complaint or a concern for foodborne illness at that site.
Okay. And what constitutes a meal? I mean, I know a lady that I picked up some lumpia and pancit from her for this past weekend. I got a tray. If we were to opt in, then, would that be considered, who determines that food would have been meals or whatever, as an example?
Yes. So the term meal is not defined in state law. However, the interpretation is that it's a serving for a single person.
Okay. And why did they limit it to 50,000?
The purpose of the MECO is meant to be an opportunity for people to enter into the food business, kind of a starting point. And as their business expands, the expectation would be that they would then expand and grow into a brick and mortar facility.
Okay. And from my understanding, and I could be wrong, from my understanding, we have to have a business license to operate a home-based business. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So why are these operations not being required to have a business license?
Yeah, I would defer to Tony for that answer.
Mayor and Council, they would.
They would?
They would, just for a business license.
Okay. Like I said, everything went by so fast I was trying to write down. So they will have to have a business license to operate?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I guess I'm sure these guys will have more questions.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification. Under the local ordinance options, it said, or did I miss it, that a city has the ability to restrict dine-in options. Is that right? Or is that under the jurisdiction of the county?
This would be under the county. So the 9 items that are identified are really the only areas where a local ordinance could be formed, a county ordinance, to clarify some of these items. And so that is one of the items that could be clarified in an ordinance.
Okay, and has that been discussed at the county level thus far?
No, we were directed to return on September 15th. We were just directed to begin working on this, and so we'll be returning in 120 days.
Oh, okay, great. So those local ordinance options have not been solidified yet at the county level?
No.
Great. Thank you.
Heather, thank you for coming. So the local ordinance options, local means county, not city.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, got it.
My local.
Okay. Who determines fire code violations? Too many people in a home for
That would still be the fire authority.
fire authority? The county fire authority or the city fire authority?
The city fire authority.
Okay.
Depending on the area. If it's in the unincorporated, it would be the county.
So the city, of course. So the city could say you have too many people inside this area.
Sure, that would be outside of the regulatory scope of environmental health.
Okay. But the county won't be saying hands off El Cajon. You can't
No.
limit that. We could still do the state fire code and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Similarly, what about a public nuisance? What about, could they operate outdoors?
So they are allowed to operate outdoors according to the state law on MECOs. That would not be prohibited. Did you ask about nuisance? Nuisance abatement is allowed.
Okay. So if they have loud music and big lights and stuff, then
Yeah,
that
so
falls under...
in the state law, it specifically calls out 3 areas that can be addressed, and one is signage, the second is noise, and the third is nuisance abatement.
Okay, and those...
And all of the other land use items are preempted, so that would be the focus of enforcement.
So we bear the cost for that?
That's correct.
Okay, or the taxpayers of El Cajon bear the cost for that. The monitoring of $50,000, 1 employee, 30 meals per day, 60 per week, who's responsible for the cost of
The
enforcement?
Department of Environmental Health and Quality.
Will the Department of Environmental Health be hiring additional people to cover all these?
When we return to the board, we're going to return with a proposal with staffing to implement the program.
Okay. Let's switch now to rentals. El Cajon's home to about 16,000 rental units, I think. So renters in an apartment could do this?
Correct.
Okay, so the landlord pays property and liability insurance on his or her complex because the insurance company says you're renting here and this is the rate we're going to charge you based on these things happening at this complex. So if you add MECOs to that, do the landlords have the opportunity to say no?
I don't have knowledge on that subject. I would defer to Tony or your city attorney.
I'd like for you to go back to county council and get an opinion on that, please.
Sure. County council has been participating in the city working groups, and so that could definitely be brought up through that channel.
I'll turn to our city manager. I'd like county council to weigh in with an opinion on that, please.
We will follow up with county council to
Okay.
ensure that happens.
Okay. Similarly, homeowners associations, they have deed restrictions on what can be done in their homeowners association. CC&Rs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, say what you can do in this. Can they restrict MECOs in their homeowners association?
Again, that would need to be looked into by their individual attorneys to ensure they can comply with what's required.
I'd like to have city staff confer with county council on this, please. Are there any responsibilities or costs the county is expecting the city to be responsible for? We talked about fire enforcement, nuisance enforcement. It sounds like food safety issues are going to be handled by the county.
Correct.
It sounds like the $50,000 employee, 30 meals a week is going to be handled by the county. Food safety certificates?
So all of the items that are part of the California Retail Food Code that are part of the normal retail food program that is already operating within the county will be implemented and enforced by the Department of Environmental Health and Quality.
Okay, sounds good. The grease, I think commercial locations have to have a grease trap.
Correct.
Do these residential locations have to have one?
No, they are not required to.
That's incredible to me. The state is saying you can cook the greasiest food you want, and it can go down into the sewer system, and it's up to the infrastructure of the city of El Cajon and then onto the city of San Diego to extract this grease. And that, I'm not blaming the county. I'm probably looking more at the state at this point, saying it's incredible that you could require that of a commercial operation, but allow a commercial operation in a residential setting and not include that for an environmental detriment. So that's really surprising to me. I know the county has no probably authority over that. Maybe it does. If it does, can city staff confer with the county to see if that's...
The individual sanitation districts or sewering agencies would be the authority over that.
Yeah. Especially in the East
However,
County.
Just to comment on the difference between a restaurant, I think part of the thought process behind that element of the code and not requiring it is the limited volume in which a MECO can produce comparatively to a restaurant.
I would say $50,000 in sales is a considerable amount of input into the wastewater system, up to.
Mr. Goebel, when we, as you know, we camera all of our sewer lines, and including residential, and it's shocking how much fats, oils, and grease build up as you can see them coming down lateral. So it's not a city maintenance issue; it's coming down the lateral, and this is pre-MECO, right? So we're anticipating we'll probably have some sewer spills, and we probably just need to have some additional budgeting for that accommodation.
So we're going to bear the cost of the additional sewer maintenance?
Our sewer ratepayers will, yes.
If the MECOs don't have to have a grease trap like the commercial locations do.
Correct.
That's nuts. That's nuts. Okay. Proof of insurance, is that going to be required of a MECO at their home?
Yeah, it's not in the state law, so that's not something that Environmental Health and Quality would be looking into.
Okay. Again, the state really dropped the ball on that one. I can see an insurance company saying, we're going to cover you for fire, for a tree falling on your house, but hey, if you want to have 30 meals a day out of your house, they may not cover you for that, cover Amico for that. So if you have any discussions with state officials, I would say, boy, somebody better talk about the change to proof of insurance. There may be a huge surprise in the area of food safety. If somebody cuts their mouth on a piece of glass, that was in the thing. If they get sick from food, it sounds like the homeowner's insurance company may say, we're out. That's not something that's under the policy. And then the victim is out, the homeowner is out, and it's just bad outcome. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. I also have the same concerns as Councilmember Goebel about the grease trap, the insurance. How many people could be inside the house at one time? Is there anything, does that address it at all?
Well, the maximum allowance of meals in a day is up to 30. So if those meals were all served at one time, it would be 30 people.
Okay. I think the county needs to address that. Is, maybe look at the square footage of the house or something that, you don't have a whole bunch of people crammed in there. Do we know how many home-cooked meals are made right now? I guess in that gray area, probably illegal, where you see the guys in the carts, in front of the. So, there was one that's in front of Smart and Final here in El Cajon.
I can't speak to unpermitted vendors. I don't know how many may exist in our county. I can say that we have nearly, nearly 400 cottage food operators in the county of San Diego. For mobile food facilities, anything from a food cart to a food truck, we have approximately 1,500.
Okay. And about 20 years ago, we had what they called the Friendship Festival here in El Cajon. And we'd get about 100,000 people that would attend. And I remember there was a sign that says this food was made in an unlicensed kitchen. And then because of budgetary constraints, we had to stop the Friendship Festival. And a lot of people that came to that festival as vendors, I mean, there was, Thai food, Vietnamese food, Indian food, all sorts of different kinds of foods. And you can buy something for $1 or $2. And it was, if you didn't like it and you had to toss it in the trash, it was no big deal. And when we reopened, we found out that the county wouldn't let them fix these things in an unlicensed kitchen. Now, if this comes about again, would they be able to go and serve 60 meals at a Friendship Festival that they prepared in their unlicensed kitchen?
So to clarify, it's the state law that prohibits the food not being prepared in a licensed kitchen. It wouldn't be the county of San Diego. It's the California Retail Food Code. But if Amico was implemented in the county, they would only be able to serve it in their home or deliver it or have it picked up. They would not be able to serve it at a festival or another setting.
Okay, and that's state law?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And everyone else covered all of the rest of my questions.
Sorry, I pushed a wrong button. Has this been done in other counties?
There's 7 other jurisdictions that have implemented, and one county, San Mateo, that is doing a pilot study for 2 years.
And what are the results of that? I mean, what's the participation rate? What's the complaint rate?
Yeah. So the large majority of them have just implemented in the last 6 months or so. The County of Riverside, which is where the bill was authored, was the first to implement. They've had a program for approximately 2 years. The first year, 2 years ago, was a slow ramp up. They had about 30 permitted MECOs in the first year. They currently have about 130 right now, so they saw a big increase in over the last year. They have not had any reports of foodborne illness, and they've only had under a handful of complaints regarding the program.
So this is all just to give people the opportunity to start their own restaurant, to get a feel for it, because there's a food desert. I don't know of a food desert in El Cajon. We have a lot of restaurants here.
So just to clarify, a food desert is not the lack of a restaurant, it's a lack of nutritious food. So there could be areas throughout the county where there's a lot of, say, liquor stores, convenience stores, but not stores that are serving fresh fruits and vegetables and nutritious food items such as those.
Okay, never mind. Thank you.
To clarify, the 130 Micos, was that in Riverside County or the city of
Riverside County.
All across the whole county?
Correct.
Okay. And then my other question, and I don't know if you would answer this, is who would be tracking sales tax for the $50,000 or whatever revenue that these Micos are going to be bringing in?
Not the Department of Environmental Health and Quality.
So then staff...
So typically, I mean, we track sales tax that's reported, but we have no way of knowing if there's a Mico on whatever street operating, we would have no idea whether they're generating sales tax or not. So I don't know how we would audit that. I don't know how anyone could audit the $50,000 limit.
So if the Department of Health isn't tracking that, then there's no entity tracking sales tax at this point?
We would actually have to hire a company to do like private investigation research on whether someone's really selling and count how many cars are going. It would be almost impossible.
So having owned a business with a food orientation to it, all dine-in business is taxable. When it's to go, then you have to decide, and there's rules like, is it carbonated? Well, yes, then it's taxable. If it's not carbonated, then it's not. If it's hot coffee, it's taxable. If it's cold coffee, it's not taxable.
That's exactly right.
And so if this is a dine-in facility, we don't know what their delivery percentage would be, but if it's hot food, it's taxable. So I think it might be pretty easy to.
Well, and they would be required to have a business license, so that might be a...
You'd have to have a business license, so we could make some assumptions that they're making sales. So,
but we don't know how to track that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know.
Excuse me, Mayor and Council. Heather, if the county opts in, will the staff, will the city of El Cajon be able to see which Micos have been licensed in the city of El Cajon?
Yeah, we have a website, sdfoodinfo.com, and it provides all of our health permitted locations. So that's available online for the public to see.
All right. Hi, thank you. Most of my questions were asked, but a couple that didn't get asked. Are they going to be required to have cash registers?
That's not outlined in the state law, so that's not something that Environmental Health and Quality would be looking into mandating or regulating.
So this could be a very largely cash business.
It could be. That's outside of our scope of authority.
Okay. So, because you do know that cash businesses that are outside of the normal flow of business, we have almost no eyes on it. It will lend itself to money laundering and all kinds of criminal activities. Has the county discussed that, or?
Our role as the Department of Environmental Health and Quality is specific to the California Retail Food Code, and that is not included in there.
All right. What about kids? These are homes. I imagine a lot of these homes have kids working in it. You don't have kids living in restaurants, so they're going to be exposed to a lot of hazards. Not the least of which child labor. And
So
how do we enforce that they're not being used as child labor?
So I can't speak to the child labor, but there are specifications in the California Retail Food Code that require only food handlers to be in the preparation area while that's occurring, while the food preparation for the Mico is occurring.
What about pets?
Pets are prohibited from the preparation area when they're preparing food for a Mico.
But they can have them in the house.
Yes.
So the cat hair and the dog hair, it's all there, and then when they serve lunch that day, the cats and dogs are shooed out, but they can have their fur and stuff flying into the food.
I wouldn't say that would fly into the food necessarily, but the cats and dogs can be present after they're not doing the active preparation.
I wouldn't go to a restaurant that had dogs in the kitchen up until the time that they serve food. You probably wouldn't either. All right. most of my other questions were asked, but you mentioned that there was one county that was doing a 2-year
Pilot study.
pilot.
So that's San Mateo County, and they've fully implemented throughout their entire jurisdiction. They've implemented according to the state law, so it's a full implementation of the program, and they're going to be tracking that program to determine what their costs as a county are and if there's any, implications or issues over the course of the next 2 years.
Okay, so I'm not sure I understand how that's a pilot program. A pilot program infers to me that it's a small cross-section of the community at large, and you're going to see how it works, and then you're going to move into the full implementation some other time.
So the state law does not allow for a partial implementation because it is an opt-in for the whole region of that governing authority, and so it's actually not allowed to do a smaller segment of a pilot, but pilot study in this instance is really meant to have them return back to their board in 2 years to provide any data and information that they've learned from implementing that MECO program to determine if they want to continue with it or make changes to their or develop a local ordinance after the 2 years.
Okay. So this is not codified yet, right? It has to be. Is there a?
They did opt in to implement
vote?
the program, but it seems they're going to be revisiting it in 2 years.
So it is codified.
Yes.
No more votes on this.
So
it's done.
As a jurisdiction, they can opt in or opt out at any time. So it seems that their board decided to opt in for a 2-year period and then reevaluate.
When you said their board, you meant the
San Mateo.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the city of San Diego, the San Diego County.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood your question.
Okay.
So no, nothing has been codified locally here. We were given direction to return in 120 days, which will be roughly sometime in January, with program options, an ordinance, an educational program for MECO operators after conducting a local municipal outreach.
Okay. Well, I assume that you're going to be reporting back to the County Board of Supervisors about this meeting?
Correct.
And also, Mr. Mayor, we do have speakers on this item.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not ending. I'm just I'm making an ask. From my specific point of view as the mayor, and I believe the rest of the city council, they'll have to speak for themselves, but I'm guessing the rest of the city council is vehemently opposed to this at every single level. That it's bad for the city, and it's an overreach of the county's authority, which is nothing new, which has been happening for the last year. We would respectfully ask the county to leave us alone and let us run the city the way we want to run the city and to stay out of it. That would be my ask. More questions? Yeah.
I get the gist is you're answering today from the point of view of Department of Environmental Health. You really can't address insurance. Okay. How about alcohol? Does that fall under your?
It does not, but we have spoken with the ABC, and alcohol licenses would be allowed at MECO establishments.
Okay, so I will share with you my feedback on that to share with whoever you feel is appropriate. Alcohol is going to be a trigger point here because already in certain census tracts in El Cajon, there's an oversaturation of liquor establishments, and the ABC has said no more. I believe that's off-site versus on-site. Determines, those kind of things. But this would be an on-site consumption of alcohol. But the state has said recently, hey, you can package alcohol to go through 2026. So MECOs could sell alcohol and have it to go. In fact, they could sell only alcohol through their on-site permit. And now with the state law, for the next 5 years, goodbye, see you later with this alcohol. So that's a concern. Obviously, as the mayor said, when you have children in the house and now you add alcohol to a presence, that's a concern also. Liability. I suppose now these MECO operators have to be like bartenders and kind of judge you've had enough and get into those kind of things. And if there's fights or disagreements, now the police get involved, and that's a cost to us. And it's an impact on the neighborhood. So alcohol's kind of a wild card on this one too, and I don't see a whole lot of good things coming out of alcohol in this one on site, especially with the exemption or whatever for the next 5 years of off-site delivery of alcohol. So that's a concern of mine. Whoever you talk to in that area, I'd appreciate you sharing that.
Is the serving of alcohol an option, a local ordinance option to not allow serving of alcohol, or is that just packaged in the bill?
Yeah, that would be up to the ABC.
It's up to the ABC. Okay.
But I guess the question would be, under MICO, could the city of El Cajon have its own ordinance saying there shall be no sale of alcohol in residential zone neighborhoods?
I'm not sure the answer to that. Certainly that's something that we can look into with council.
We'll follow up with county council on
that. The sale of alcohol would be a deal killer for me. I think that we worked really hard in this council to keep alcohol out of the hands of kids, more so than probably any other city in the county. So, having alcohol stacked up in somebody's kitchen, I think is a really bad way to go, and is kind of against the unwritten policy, you might say, that this council has had for the last 20 years, and we have a real problem with alcohol in the city of El Cajon.
Let's go ahead and thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and call on speakers.
We have 4 speakers. The first one is Karen Melvin.
Hello, my name is Karen Melvin, and I am the co-lead of the San Diego MICO Coalition. I'm honored to be able to address you today, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. But the truth is the opportunities and benefits of allowing a MICO permitting are many, and the concerns put forward have not become a reality in the counties where MICOs are already operating. The report that the city staff compiled listed many benefits of MICOs, but they only listed what advocates said. They did not appear to speak with actual people in this city who are eagerly waiting for the chance to become a MICO. People who would be able to live a dignified life of self-reliance and empowerment by increasing their family income and contributing positively to the economy of El Cajon. By the negative recommendation before you today, I see that you and your staff have many concerns, and it's been very adequately expressed. When city staff spoke with code compliance, building safety, planning, fire, and public works about concern, it failed to note the actual data on MICOs that exist in California counties that have already opted in to have MICOs. As Heather Bomono said, Riverside County has had MICOs since July 1st, 2019, and over 130 MICOs are currently operating there. So we do have 2 years' worth of data to see if fears of food safety, oversight, parking, traffic, noise concerns have been borne out. I personally conducted a public records request of the Riverside County Department of Environmental Health, along with code enforcement of 23 cities, incorporated cities, and the County of Riverside for the 133 MICO home addresses. And yes, County of Riverside they list all the current MICOs for anyone in the public to see, so it's very easy to access. It's not a mystery who's operating a MICO in the County of Riverside. The findings were 0 food safety related complaints and only 2 cases of nuisance issues involving brand new MICOs. The other 131 MICOs in our records request had no complaints. They had a 100% compliance rate in food safety and a 98.5 compliance rates for nuisance issues in 2 years of operation and over 100,000 meals served. Grease was brought up as a concern by this group, but an analysis of the meal offerings of Riverside Home Cooks show only 6% of the menu items are deep fried. And while grease traps and such are not a requirement, they are and have been utilized by home cooks in Riverside County. My career was with government in a regulatory agency, so I understand the origins of the concerns put forward. But I also know that good leaders want to make a decision on the best data and information possible. So that is what I have endeavored to bring you today. Looking at actual data and facts, I urge you to pause the negative recommendation and instead consider the possibility of suggesting to the board a 2-year trial basis for the MECO ordinance. So thank you very much.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Sure, I have questions.
I'm trying to figure out how many meals per day the average MECO is selling. So did you say there were 100,000 meals prepared in what
That's
period of time?
collectively of all the MECOs over the 2-year period of time operating in Riverside County.
So 100,000 divided by 133, 751 over 2 years.
That's if they served 60 a week, right? And they don't necessarily need to serve at that limit. And many
Right,
people opt to be part-time or seasonal.
Right, so it's 751 meals for 133 outlets over 2 years. Am I correct there?
I'll go with what you say because I'm not envisioning it just verbally.
So, okay, so divided by 365 days in a year, that's only two per day for 2 years. Actually, it's half of that, about one per day.
Yes.
That's not
So
a
like
whole
I
lot
said,
of meals.
people that want a home-based business have reasons to, whether they're caring for a special needs child or an older adult, they want to work out of their home. They want to adjust their hours. They're not necessarily interested in working 40 to 60 hours a week. Some of them only want, and a lot of them only do it on the weekends. And so it's part of this, the beauty of it is the flexibility of it. There are people that cannot work outside their home and go to work every day at a restaurant. And there are cooks that want to work out of their home or this is the way they can contribute for many different reasons. So this just provides an option that is currently not available to people.
So I'm a little bit torn in this because I like to see the entrepreneurs start out, in a small venue. I mean, that's what I did. I had a mail order business selling comic books out of my parents' garage when I was 19. So, and that led to me to being able to get a warehouse later on. But without having used their garage, I would have been out of luck. Fortunately, it was in a county, and I didn't need a business license. So it looks like there's not a whole lot of impact given this 2 meals, which over 2 years per outlet. I'm sure this is just an average, but I'm sure there are some more. I have grave concerns about the alcohol. It just doesn't look like that big of an impact. I'm kind of a free market kind of guy, but with a caveat that the people can't get poisoned, or get sick.
And for sure, just like a restaurant does not want to have food poisoning, you part of reputation, a home cook, they don't want that to be part of their reputation. There's online platforms that they sell, and people rate these people just like they rate restaurants. And so that's going to kill their business too. So they're extremely
right. And the person going inside they know that they're going into, they know there's a little bit more risk there than going into a restaurant. I mean, it's, so I'm on the fence on this right now because I know there's a lot of immigrants that don't know how to do anything else, but boy, can they cook well.
Boy, can they cook, you're right.
I know when I was teaching down at Southwestern College, a lot of times my students would bring me in some specialty home-cooked meal and something wrapped in bananas, and they go, wow, this is great. And I knew they may have had a dog walking through the kitchen or their cat or whatever, but, I got 2 dogs, and they walk through the kitchen when I'm cooking. So, okay, well, you got me thinking.
Good. Yes.
Thank you for giving me. I understand the impact, not a lot. So I have some questions. out of the 130 or so, how many serve alcohol?
From reports I've heard, only one has pursued it. Only one.
Okay.
And I
In
don't
all
think it's
California?
easy to get an ABC license.
At the Riverside County test
In
group of
Riverside County, I'm
130.
talking about what has actually happened where MECOs have been operating.
In the Riverside group of 130.
In the Riverside group, only one has even pursued it, yes.
Okay, so you said 98.5% no.
98.5.
I'm changing topics, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
98.5% did not have nuisance issues.
Correct.
So when you say nuisance, do you mean calls from police?
I did a code enforcement, Public Records Act for traffic and noise, specifically for the addresses listed on the website for Riverside County DEH, and I asked them all very similar questions, and it was a tedious thing to do, but I felt it really had to be done so we could deal with actual facts and not just theoretical concerns.
Okay. You said about 100,000 meals. You said about 6% of them were deep fried.
That's from what we know from surveying the menus. Like I said, many of them advertise on an online platform, so you can see what their menus are. And our survey has estimated about 6% of the menu items in totality for the entire county are deep fried items.
So I'm okay. So that's about 6,000 deep fried items over 2 years, which is not a lot. But to me, it's not how much grease goes into the food. It's how much grease you're recycling each day.
True. All these
the
people,
2 gallons of grease or whatever.
All these people would be trained as food managers. That's part of the requirement. They will be educated, and which is far more than's happening now in an informal food economy where there's no education, no oversight. So this is an attempt to bring some of the informal food economy into some amount of regulation, oversight, and food safety.
I have an unusual experience in that I worked for Jack in the Box in the corporate office in 1993 during the E. coli crisis.
Yeah, I remember.
And so I know a lot about food safety. I've been through HACCP, ServSafe, I was a ServSafe manager. It's really difficult to pinpoint the source of food poisoning. My experience from what I've learned is most often food poisoning occurs about 6 hours after you've ingested the poisonous food. It takes that long to make your system upset. So my question to you, maybe this is a question for Heather, which you can address, Mary, you can have her come up whenever you want. But if somebody calls and says, hey, I ate food from a MECO last night, and I was up all night, are they going out to do a special inspection based on that?
Absolutely.
That report? And will the county be posting A, B, and C cards in the window, just like they do at commercial locations? Do you know?
So far, the County of Riverside does not post A, B, and C.
Okay, sounds good.
Go ahead.
Grade cards is prohibited.
Come on up, Heather. It's okay.
We wouldn't be able to post grade cards. That's not allowed per the state law, so they would not have a grade card like a regular restaurant would. But I want to go back to the food-borne illness question, because food-borne illness is largely dependent on the pathogen that the person got. So 6 hours to 72 hours to 2 weeks, it all depends on the pathogen. But when we do receive a complaint for food-borne illness, we do a 3-day dietary intake. We work closely with public health. We go out and do a field investigation. So foodborne illness is taken very seriously, whether it's for a MECO or a restaurant.
Would the county be, instead of the annual inspection, the county would go out on an
Additionally.
on
and
an
it would
as
allow for
complaint
that
basis?
additional inspection if there's a report of foodborne illness or a complaint.
Where would the public know that that MECO scored 72% and has a C in their window versus, there's...
sdfoodinfo.com posts all of our inspection results.
So can you see this actually is a DEH county issue I'd like to consider, is that you're saying state law prohibits the posting of these county grades?
Correct. We would not be able to, as part of our local ordinance, include them in our grading ordinance.
Wow. So you have no idea when you walk into a MECO whether they scored a 72 or a 98 like you do a commercial
Unless
restaurant.
you download our app and look at sdfoodinfo.com and see their most recent inspection score.
I would probably speak for the public in saying it's probably not going to happen before I go to a MECO. Yeah. So I understand.
There are Yelp reviews too.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Just have a couple of questions, sorry. And please know, thank you for coming up as a speaker. Please know we don't normally question speakers this intensely. I think for me, and maybe for the rest of the council, part of our reservation on this is that we're going, if the county decides to move forward with this, we're going to be mandated. We don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. So as leaders of the city, we don't have a choice in this matter, and that's a big reservation.
I totally understand your due diligence.
Now, I understand. I know of a gentleman in Riverside who's paraplegic, and he makes candy out of his home. Mm-hmm. I've seen the videos he makes. I don't know if I'd want to eat his candy. And my question is, if the city has no option on this, the residents won't have an option on this. So you have an apartment building with maybe 40, 50, 60 apartments in it, large complex. And say, for example, it's a large immigrant community. And yes, I want to encourage them to become a part of the workforce, to encourage them to, come out and start their own business. But the other residents that live there, they don't have an option. So maybe you've got Pakistani food over here in this corner, and you've got Mexican food over in this corner, and maybe you have Ethiopian food next door to them. And then after a while, you've got, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if you have a large complex and you have several Mikos in that complex, what about the residents who live there who are saying, I can't take this anymore? They don't have a choice. And so now they have to either put up with something that really impacts their life, maybe the smells, maybe they're really allergic to peanuts, or maybe they're really allergic to garlic, and they don't have a choice to get out, and now they've got to put up with it because maybe, okay, typically this is going to happen in maybe a low-rent apartment complex, so they are not going to be able to move. How is that fair to them?
I will say that they do have the option to call code enforcement. When I did my Public Records Act request, I did get one code enforcement report that came to me that said that someone was cooking outdoors, and they had just become a Miko. And the neighbor complained that there were odors. And so code enforcement went out and spoke to the people and told them they needed to be a good neighbor. And we certainly would agree with that. And they told them they had to bring their operation inside. And so they went back, and even code enforcement went back in 30 days and even followed up. And now those people had opted not to continue being a Miko for whatever reason, but the neighbor did complain. There was follow-up action. There was even a 30-day follow-up action to make sure that that Miko was being a good neighbor. And we totally support Mikos being good neighbors.
Right, but I understand, though, that a lot in our immigrant community does not report to the police or not report to code enforcement. They're not going to do that. They don't come from that mentality. Mm-hmm. They're basically, I'm just going to put up with it because that's what they're used to. Mm-hmm. So I think part of it is, if this goes through, we have no choice. Residents won't have a choice. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it just seems like, why not organize these people that want to do it, rent a large kitchen, and have them work out of this kitchen as a joint venture, meaning I know when I worked for a caterer, we shared the kitchen with another restaurant. Mm-hmm. And so, we were able to use the same ovens, the refrigerators, and everything else. Why not encourage that? That's a small operation. They can go in. Everything is monitored a lot more than out of someone's home. And because you've worked with all of this, that's why I'm asking you, is why not encourage that type of mentality versus coming out of the home, especially when it comes to alcohol? I would not want to know that someone is making their own moonshine or their own vodka or whatever without regulations, and they're just making it out of their home and selling it.
Well, I don't think that would be legal anyway.
Well, I don't know. If they're selling alcohol, if they're selling alcohol, what's the point of selling alcohol unless you're making it?
I can't.
I mean, you can buy alcohol at a store. So
we monitor things statewide, and so far, a regulated, permitted MECO has not been reported making moonshine. So that's all I can tell you is what's happened so far. The other thing I'll say, too, is that we do have people that want MECOs that actually have rented a commercial kitchen and just found it cost prohibitive and found that they were hardly ever home with their children. And so they do want to cook out of their home. The other way to look at it, too, is that where the scenario you said, where there's a Pakistani and a Mexican and Chaldean and all these things in one apartment complex, those people that live in that apartment complex also have the option to go over and purchase food from those people and not from their local fast food place. I mean, they have a chance to have ethnically, culturally appropriate food right next door to them that's available to them that would not be available to them otherwise. So there is a positive to that, although I do hear what you're saying. Yeah.
But say I can't eat any of that food. Now
it's not all going to be just ethnic food. I mean, there are other people that make a variety of things.
All right. Thank you.
What was the name of your organization that you represented?
The San Diego MECO Coalition.
San Diego MECO Coalition. And so are you local here?
Yeah.
You're not in Riverside or anything like that?
No, I'm born and raised here.
So what's the goal of the organization? You mentioned training and education, and is that kind of the goal of the organization?
Well, we're a coalition. We're not like a 501c3. We're a coalition of people, organizations, nonprofits, and individuals that have come together because we have seen the benefits of microenterprise home kitchen operations. I will say for myself that I was the lead for the Leadership Council for San Diego Food System Alliance, and it was during 2018, and I was tracking state legislation as a part of what I did as a chair, and that's how it came to my attention, that when it was going through the state legislature. And of all the bills I read regarding food and food systems, this one really resonated with me. Very much so, because it gave people not just money handed to them, it gave them an opportunity to work and to own their own business, to bridge some of these barriers that have prevented people from coming in. As Ms. Councilman Kendrick said, you know, people that are entrepreneurial and have wanted to enter into the food business, this now gives them the opportunity with controls in place. And as I said earlier in my talk, it's proving itself not to be, it's proving itself to largely run in compliance. And this is across all cities and incorporated areas. We're just looking at what's already been happening, because as you know, that's a good indicator of what could happen here, too.
And I guess my other question is, the coalition is obviously advocating for it. Is there plans for the coalition to become a 501c3 and kind of form a group that brings in all these individual MECOs and does trainings and does?
Well, one thing we have communicated to DEHQ is that we don't plan on coming to the door of the ordinance vote, and if it passes, then just leave. And no, we're committed to, when it comes to the ordinance vote, and if the ordinance does pass, then we're committed to, and Heather Bomona had said too, that they have to come back with a plan for educating people, and again, educating those people operating perhaps without a permit right now, educating them that now there's a way in, there's a way they don't have to look over their shoulder, there's a way they can become educated and trained and be just a really positive contributing member of whatever city and incorporated area they're in.
Right.
So we plan on, and there are also people and organizations that are going to help in the training, and so we're going to try to help facilitate that and just be a liaison to that. And if there's others that are thinking about contributing to the fees for people to be able to access that, other counties have done that too. So our job, as we see it, is not going to stop just if it passes. So we're committed to doing this the right way and walking with these people through it. So.
Yeah, it might be, should this pass, it might be wise to keep the coalition and form some kind of an organization to ensure that people are being good neighbors, because obviously our concerns are, if someone's being a bad neighbor, there's really no opportunity for us to say, hey, you're ruining it for everybody else. But if there's a coalition of people that are saying, hey, you're giving us a bad name,
Absolutely.
you know, that should it pass. So thank you.
Go ahead, Michelle.
One other thing, what about someone who has my mother had a severe allergic reaction to seafood. She couldn't even go into a restaurant. I didn't grow up eating shrimp or anything seafood because she just literally would go into anaphylactic shock. So what type of regulations? I mean, how do you regulate something like that if she's no longer alive, but if she were alive and she's living in an apartment and the person next door cooks a crab boil or, you know, some sort of seafood, is there any obligation from the county or from anyone to mitigate that instance?
The state law requires that they take an 8-hour food safety manager certificate course, and as part of that course, allergen training is a part of that. So it's a required element.
So if you're cooking in your house and you're cooking a crab boil and you've got these things through, they've already proven that cigarette smoke goes through walls, goes through HVAC systems, so the allergens from the seafood are going to do the same thing. How do you mitigate that?
Yeah, so the training will teach them that, but the requirements on the MECOs are the same for a regular brick and mortar restaurant as it pertains to allergens.
Right, but she didn't go to a restaurant. If this person is cooking it next door to her, she doesn't have the option of not going into her home. She lives there. So how does that help? Well, I mean, you're saying,
I mean, if
you know, if
have
you're in a
MECO,
restaurant, you don't go to the restaurant.
Right, but if an apartment next door, if they're living next door to somebody, that person could be cooking seafood then anyway, regardless of their MECO.
Yes.
Right. It's
okay. Thank you.
Right, done?
Oh, I had a question. I don't want you to think that we're picking on you, but you're a wealth of knowledge, so that's why you're getting asked all these questions, okay?
I'm happy to do so.
Take
I
it
really
as a
am.
compliment. I'm trying to figure out how much of an impact, how many people would open these MECO restaurants. And so I don't know if you know the population of Riverside County, but
Mr. Kendrick, I ran some numbers, and if you look at the ratio per 10,000 individuals using Riverside's model, by the way, Riverside County is much less urban than San Diego County.
Yes.
So, but let's assume you use that lower number. I think it'd be higher. El Cajon would have a minimum of 6.7 based on that.
6.7
Yeah.
for all of El Cajon City?
Yeah, but I also worry that this 2-year window that you're looking at, that Riverside County is looking at, is a really odd year. You can make the argument that MECOs are more popular because people are at home, stuck at home.
Right.
But you could also make the argument that the demand for these types of services are less too. So I don't know if this is a good 2-year to look at or a great 2-year window to look at. I'm not sure. I think the jury could be out.
Even if it was double, it'd be 12 or 13. That doesn't seem to be a huge impact on our city. And I like the idea of these entrepreneurs starting a small business in their house and then learning about all the marketing and everything else and opening our own restaurants. And we have a lot of immigrants that don't make a whole lot of money here, but they can really cook well. So
there is a person in Riverside County, one of the home cooks, the permitted MECOs, who actually did just what you're talking about. He was very successful at what he was doing, and when he went to the lenders, he not only had a theoretical business plan, he had, here's what I've been doing, and the lenders were talking to him, and he's in negotiation to get his brick and mortar business. So that's a success story that we can all applaud.
So even if we had 3 times that number, 18 of them in the city, I don't think it's going to have a big impact on our sewer system. I don't like the idea of the alcohol. I like the idea of giving these people, these entrepreneurs, a chance to make some money and pull themselves up by the bootstrap. I'm just a big free market guy. That's the way I look at it. And I think the benefits far outweigh the problems, given that there wouldn't be more than a dozen, I think, in the city of El Cajon.
To both of you, I think what we're saying is we're really concerned about not having control over a lot of things. I think you've given us some comfort that the exposure, there's a difference between possibility and probability.
Yes.
We have to discuss all the possibilities.
Yes.
Because that's our job. Our job is, what's the worst case scenario? What are we sending our police officers into? What are we sending our fire department into? So we have to look at all possibilities. You're helping us realize the probabilities. Like Gary said, you know, the whole incubator concept is brilliant. We talk about it in the technology and in the WeWork environment. This is just in a food setting, and we're just a little more concerned and not having control, but you have given us valuable experience. Thank you.
Happy to do so.
You know, I have a question. It's probably a moot point, and it's mostly rhetorical, so you don't have to get involved if you don't want to. But, you know, our job as elected officials is to protect people.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of people that their entire life savings is wrapped up in their home. Everything they have is in their home. So let's say we got an 80-year-old couple, and pretty soon they're going to sell their house because they're going to move into an assisted living facility, and they're going to live off the money of that house for the last 10, 15 years of their life. But their cul-de-sac has 3 Micos. They're the only house that doesn't have a Mico. And they go to sell that house, and they say, oh, by the way, to the real estate agent, you've got to know that we've got 3 kitchens that are serving, they're basically restaurants in this cul-de-sac. They have to tell the next buyers that. And I would not buy a house in a cul-de-sac with 3 restaurants. I just wouldn't. It's going to affect property values. It's going to damage lives. And, you know, I know your argument that it's going to help some people, but it's also going to hurt some people. Everything has unintended consequences. Everything has some winners and some losers. And I don't like the idea of picking winners and losers in this, especially considering how many other problems are on this. And so if you want to say anything about that, that's fine. You don't have to.
I'll just say we haven't seen that effect yet. And if you opted to advocate for a 2-year study, that would certainly be some of the things that could be considered and looked at over the 2-year period of time. And then when the Board of Supervisors revisit it, it obviously would be local. It wouldn't now be Riverside's data. It would be San Diego data County of San Diego data that would be coming forward, and all the cities too, individually, however they wanted to work together to track that information.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for coming.
much.
I think we had to move on because we've got more speakers.
I just got one more question from our representative from the county.
Yeah, come on up.
Is it possible that the county can make as part of an ordinance that the Micos have to be a certain number of feet apart?
No.
Okay. Thank you. But I think the possibility of 2 or more being close together is pretty low, since we've got 100,000 people living here.
But even one on my cul-de-sac would kill property values.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just point out, we talked about, I gave you a number of forecasting how many potentially could be here. I think it's valuable to look at a more urban city like Corona, for example. Corona's a little bit bigger than us. Vince, how many people live in Corona? 166,000, so a little bit larger than us. They have 17 Micos, so that gives you a sense.
Great. But that's also understanding that the program is brand new and people don't know about it, and they're learning about it. It will increase with time. All right, who's next?
We have 4 more speakers, sir. The next person is Beverly Ringgold.
Good afternoon.
Hello, welcome.
My name is Beverly Ringgold. I graduated from Grossmont Culinary Program last year. It was a virtual graduation, which was very disappointing, but I did it anyway. I'd like to address Mr. Mayor first.
Sure.
Your question about a dog. I would not want to eat in a restaurant that had a dog in the kitchen or anywhere in the vicinity. I've taken every class in my culinary, and sanitation is very important. And I had a beloved dog that I got rid of because I'm preparing my kitchen to be the utmost sanitation. I don't want the animal there. I don't want her to feel that she's not wanted. So I got rid of my dog. I don't want to have to cook and worry about a dog coming in the kitchen. So I agree with you on that. There's a lot of us that I can't pronounce your name. Thank you. I'd like to also address your question that you had when you stated there's so many restaurants, so why have a Miko? That's true. You can go anywhere and eat any type of food you want. There's a lot of us that's not working due to COVID and due to a lot of other reasons. I want to work part-time, but I want to do it from my home. And having your home-based restaurant is convenient and feasible for people like me, and there's a lot of us, because we don't have a job. So we don't have the startup money to go and start a restaurant. And no bank is going to look at me and give me a dime to start up a restaurant because I'm not employed. So it's more feasible for me and other people to have a home-based business where, like Karen said, we can work and set our own hours. I would not do this full-time. My culinary classes were 5 hours each, which was very tiresome. But you do it because I have the passion, and I started, and I needed to finish it, and I'm glad that I did. And there's graduates that graduated in culinary before me, with me, and after me. And there's a lot of us. And a lot of people have passion for cooking, and they want to set their own hours. I would not do it full time. I would opt out for alcohol. I don't want to have to worry about that. And as far as the different smells, I grew up in New York, and I couldn't wait for dinner time because it was cultures everywhere, and everyone was cooking, and we all ate at each other's houses. So that's happening anyway. A lot of us, like I said, are not working. I choose not to work full-time. I worked at Viejas, and it was full-time, and I was going to school, and it's not anything that I want to continue to do. So if this is passed, I would like to see if I could work with some of you to address some of the problems that you brought up, because sanitation is very, very important. Food poisoning can happen whether you're cooking at home or in a restaurant. Buying bad meat from the supermarket can give you food poisoning, which I've had before.
Ma'am.
And you don't know it's going to happen until you get the food home and you cook it. So any questions for me?
Let me see if there's any questions.
Just a comment. About 20 years ago, I was on the Grossmont-Cuyamaca College Community Governing Board, and so I know all about your program, and I've eaten there many times. It was unbelievably good. So if this goes through, I'll be at your house.
Congratulations on graduating.
Thank you very
That's
much.
a
I
great
appreciate it. Thank you.
Roya Baghetti.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Roya Baghetti, and I'm here with my colleague Karen Melvin as also a co-lead of the San Diego Miko Coalition. We've been working with dozens of local community-based organizations to strengthen the food system, legalize the homemade food economy, and diversify healthy food options. In my professional capacity, I'm a food policy attorney, and I serve as the policy director at FoodNome, which is the first legal marketplace for home-cooked food in the U.S. Foodnome is a startup and registered food service intermediary on a mission to promote food entrepreneurship nationally by empowering home cooks to legally and safely sell food from their home kitchens. Our organization has actively supported over 150 home cooks across the state of California, the majority of whom are women and people of color, through obtaining their MECO permits. And we've seen the incredible positive impacts of the MECO program firsthand. So as Karen mentioned, in over 2 years of operation with more than 100,000 meals sold, there have been 0 foodborne illness cases from permitted MECOs to date, nor any food safety complaints. And to answer about alcohol, we've only heard of one person that's approached to even get a permit for that. But just in terms of how the demographics break down, we found that only 4% of the people are even actually opening their home for in-home dining. The majority of it is actually done through delivery and pickup. Most of that actually is pickup, and it's spaced out in a way that there haven't been major traffic concerns about people picking up the food moving forward. But really through our advocacy work, we've spoken with so many unlicensed home cooks participating in the informal food economy here in San Diego County. They're operating underground and in the shadows to support their families and aren't able to be here in front of you today publicly because they're scared. There are estimates that tens of thousands of Californians already sell food from home informally through social media sites because of the high barriers of entry to the commercial food industry. So legalizing MECOs will provide these cooks with the ability to openly access business education and training on safe food handling practices and improve public health safeguards. So essentially, you would be looking at more control because they would actually be the avenue to figure out where these MECOs are located, who's already doing this selling, and be able to actually send out people if there are any complaints about this. And the annual rent for a commercial kitchen, for example, is still $45,000 per year, which is a lot more than a lot of our community members here have the opportunity to pay at this point. So we've just seen the incredible impact that this has had, and the ability for neighbors to actually be able to look up, is this a registered MECO? Can I actually, go to this and make the choice to dine at this restaurant? And we've had, stories of people, to answer your seafood question, that, for example, we have a customer in Riverside County who is suffering from, cancer and is going through chemo treatments, and he's actually able to communicate directly with the home cook to make sure that his food is not prepared with salt and certain other items, and is now given that option to find healthy food, in his community, in his neighborhood, that he doesn't have with restaurants or anything like that. So it's providing opportunities for people, and again, it is already happening here. So this is giving us the opportunity to give those people the education and tools to do this legally and safely and better protect San Diegans here.
Okay. Any questions? No. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
May Hassan.
Mr. Mayor, good afternoon, everyone. My name is May Hassan. I'm a business advisor with the International Rescue Committee, the IRC. I'm also a refugee who came to U.S. in 2013. I'm a resident of El Cajon, and I'm a business entrepreneur as well. So I'm wearing a few hats here as I speak today to you. I will try to speak more on the probabilities. I heard a lot of concerns and possibilities, which I understand. Actually, from my work as a business advisor to many business entrepreneurs that most of them are women, refugees and immigrants who came to U.S. and trying to find job opportunities. I noticed that homemade food and cottage food has played a crucial role in their income and also into their analytical dependency, which helped them to be also independent from the government assistance programs, which is also putting burden on that side too, specifically during the pandemic. So I also noticed that most of them trying to connect with the community. So in the diverse communities that we have here in U.S., cooking food at home, culturally, with different cultures, also making good bonds between the communities, the neighborhood. So all this played a role in that. What I also noticed that many of these women had barriers to enter the job market, so providing also job opportunities to most of them. They had struggles to get job when they arrived to U.S. due to many reasons, as many of you know, as the language barrier, the experience barrier. You need to have experience to work to get a job here in U.S. So many of them had these struggles, and cooking food at home provide them with this opportunity to provide for their family. And many of them are single moms or flee the war because their husbands were affected in the war, sons in the war. So many of them had to find a job here, and instead, again, of reliant on the government assistance, they are trying to feed their family and increase their income, and also to find a job opportunity and empower these women. Yes, and then many of these women also trying to take care of their children, and many of the women I know from Middle Eastern culture struggle to leave their children and then also leave their elderly. They usually, in our culture, in Middle Eastern culture, it's important to take care of your elderly, your in-laws, your mom, your dad. So it's very hard for them to go and find a job, and they will be shamed by the community if they leave. So it's better for them to stay home and then serve the community. And through the IRC, we provide also many trainings on rules and regulations, specifically on how to manage the food business and the cottage food, and we are happy to provide that.
I appreciate that. Listen, we're out of time, but is there anything else that you wanted to say before we
No,
close?
that's it. And we're here to help and to ensure that we are here also to support the communities and educating them and how to be licensed.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Last speaker, Tony Sochile.
Good afternoon. To address Councilman Goebel's some of the questions that you asked regarding insurance, being a retired insurance broker, I can address those questions. The liability coverage of homeowner policy excludes business in the home. There is an incidental coverage that you buy for music studios or art studio or dance studio, but that's it. If you have to purchase liquor liability insurance plus commercial insurance to cover homeowners, I think that's going to be very difficult because they have certain requirements, fire suppression systems, all these things that go into commercial buildings. So unless the insurance industry changes. So if the income is up and up, $50,000 plus the insurance that you're going to pay for, it's not economically feasible at all, unless it's done under the table. Then it would make a big difference. I think most people are doing what they're doing without contacting their insurance agent or their insurance company, advising them that that's what they're doing. In principle, I don't agree what's going on because, it is civil servant's duty to protect a person's freedom of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And people can protect themselves pretty well. What I'm disagreeing in principle is that the people in the community are not deciding what they want to do in their own community themselves. Somebody else outside of the community is telling them what to do. For example, the state. The state has taken away many of the liberties that people have in each community. In the state, it's another chip on the block where they're taking the liberties of the cities to do as they wish, as the community wishes to do, and the residents thereof. So therefore, I disagree with all of this that's going on. I know that there are people who are hungry and are suffering and so forth. That can be addressed in a local forum, not by the state. Because when the state puts their hands into the thing, it becomes socialism extraordinaire. And this is what we are becoming. We're becoming a nation, a socialist nation. We're telling everybody what to do. So therefore, I disagree with that entirely. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, just as an insurance agent. So what happens? So there's a grease fire, the house burns down, the neighbor's house burns down.
A fire is covered by an insurance policy.
Even if,
However,
okay, even if you have if you're operating a restaurant?
no matter what causes, a fire is covered. However, your policy will be canceled because you're conducting business in the home.
All right, so say a fight breaks out and two people punch each other. That happens in restaurants all the time.
Right.
I go to special restaurants, yeah. You're not supposed to ask that question. Hypothetically, what happens then?
It depends on the type of liability that you have. If you have the slip and fall liability, no coverage. Unless you have personal injury liability where somebody accuses you of something and a fight breaks out. But then again, if it's a commercial situation, it's not covered by the insurance company.
So maybe the better question is, are there things that stick out in your mind that would be invalidated because they were operating a commercial kitchen out of their home? What kind of things would be invalidated?
Except fire, everything else.
Okay.
Everything else would be excluded. Maybe plumbing damage also might be excluded too because it was in conjunction with using it for a commercial basis rather than a regular basis. So let's say there's plumbing problems because of the grease. That could be a possibility as well. So I understand Councilman Kendrick's sentiments. You know, we want to be helpful to the community, but we have to look at the big picture. There's a few places are doing that, but once it catches on, that might not be the situation. It might be like opening a Pandora's box and a can of worms coming everywhere. I think that's what we're looking at. Are we going to submit to tyranny, or are we going to withstand it and fight it? I know we can't tell the state what to do, but this is a beginning stage. Okay?
You know,
Thank
Tony,
you.
You raise a good question because it's an interesting debate. The state is saying we're creating this opportunity for people, but we're going to mandate control. And so is it overreach on the city to say no, or is it overreach on the government to say you must? It's an interesting debate.
It's an overreach of the government to say you must. It's not an overreach for the city to say no, because you're representing the community and the freedom of the community and the people that live in that community.
I understand. There's probably both sides to debate is what I'm saying.
Oh, yes,
I always love to know the rest of the story, you know, for things.
Yes, but you have to remember also, when you're implementing a law or a principle or whatever the case may be, what is the purpose behind it? What's motivating it?
I understand. I'm sorry, I got to cut you off because we got to move on.
Okay.
But I just wanted to point out it's an interesting debate.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We still have a lot of meeting left. All right. Is that?
No more comments, sir.
Okay, great. Well, so it comes back to council. I mean, I think we've discussed this to death. If somebody has something they want to say, that's great. If not, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I think we've grilled people enough on this subject. I'll make a motion that the City Council reviews the information and will direct staff to send a letter recommending that the County Board of Supervisors opt out of the program unless we have some of these concerns addressed.
Sure.
You know, it's been my experience that the free market always wins. People, if there's a demand, the people are going to want it. There's clearly a demand for these in-home kitchens. I see a lot of them all over. It's kind of in the shadows right now. I think everybody wins if we make them legal and they get the training they're supposed to get. So they're not going to poison anybody. I think that given the information from Riverside and I think it was Corona, that maybe we'll get a dozen or two throughout the city, if that. One of the reasons that Cuba's been able to stay afloat, because they're allowing these in-home kitchens and restaurants, even though they had this horrible government, this communist government that ties everybody's hands and everything else. And I just think that we would give a lot of these immigrants who don't make a lot of money a chance to make some money and pull themselves up by the bootstraps. That's
I think I'm going to actually rescind my motion on the letter part. I would just say we've received information, we provided feedback, we don't know what county staff's recommendation on the final ordinance would be. I would say at that point we would take a position on that. So I'll rescind my motion.
Are you making a new one?
No.
Well, yeah, we have to vote on this, but somebody can make a substitute motion if they.
I'm rescinding my motion.
So you're making no motion at all?
Well, we need the second to withdraw. The second?
Second.
Who seconded Mr. Goebel's?
I don't think anybody
There was never a second.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to make a comment. If that, so thank you to the Miko's Coalition of San Diego County. Is that right? Did I get that right? And Karen and your team, I appreciate that. I think, as my colleagues stated as well, you know, the reason we grilled you is because this is a new concept, and that's why we were elected, is to, you know, put you through the furnace to see, is this going to explode on us or not? And you came with data and information. I really do appreciate that. My concerns, as all of ours are, is the alcohol sales and the potential disruption. You know, trying to put my 1.5-year-old daughter to bed while they're serving up brewskis next door is, you know, not ideal. But then I begin to think, well, these people are bringing alcohol and strangers into their home, and that's a big risk for them as well, where, you know, I just signed, you know, I'm putting my head in the homeowners thinking, you know, I just want to sell pancit or tamales or something, and I don't want strangers coming into my home and drinking. So there is a risk to the homeowner as well if they have kids there. And then the dine-in option, I would submit to our staff to submit to the county that is one area of local control that we could initiate. So I would be an advocate to not have dine-in options. I'm torn on this as well. I understand why we have zoning as a city, but my grandmother, my tita, in the last council meeting, I said that she started her restaurant in Chicago by being able to cook at her home. And she was making burritos and tamales, and then it was a family tradition where on Christmas, all the grandkids she would teach us how to cook tamales, and it'd be an all-day thing, and it was super fun, and it was a tradition. And so I'm torn in it, and the idea that a person can save up money to then contribute to the economy, I like it. The 30 meals a day, 60 meals a week, that's a good, it sounds like that was crafted to work on the weekends. Saturday and Sunday, we have, you know, X amount of tamales. We're selling them until they run out, that kind of a thing. And I've bought the underground food all through the pandemic. You see them pop up on Facebook Marketplace, on Craigslist, and I bought salt and pepper wings and shawarma and all this stuff because a lot of restaurants were closed. So we see this emerging market coming forth, and you know, I tend to want to side with the free market and let people, to a degree, you know, do what they want in their homes. And if people are getting sick, they're not going to go there. We have Yelp and Google reviews and word spreads and this and that. And so my concerns still stand with the alcohol sales and the dine-in options. I don't think that's a good idea, but you know, I've seen my grandmother and my family benefit from it, and it's still El Jardín Cafe, El Jardín Restaurant in Chicago, in Wrigleyville, right where the Cubs play. It's been there. It's staying there. It's employed hundreds of people over 40 years. Opened it up in the late 60s. And so I have a hard time telling people this is the way I'm looking at it. I look at my abuelita in the eye and say, no, you can't do this. I can't do that. I can't say, no, you can't do that. And the government is limited to what the individual can do to their neighbor. And I just can't look at them and say, nope, tamales on the weekend and you get a couple extra bucks so you can get your grandkids toys or whatever they choose to do with the money. I have a hard time in my conscience saying no to that. So that's all I'll say.
Anybody else?
Well, I'll make a motion. As I try to craft it in a way that this will make all of us happy, that we send a letter to the county, and we're okay with everything with the exception of alcohol. We really, really don't want alcohol served. And let's see, and Phil, did you have anything else? What was it?
I don't like the dine-in option.
And hopefully not the dine-in option, but I think the dine-in option was a small percentage. 4%? Is that even a big deal? 4% of, let's say there's even 20 of them. I mean, that's going to be, 4%, that's going to be less than 2.
I think it's moot because it's state law allows alcohol and state law allows dine-in.
But can we craft this? Can we ask the county not to allow the alcohol?
That's not an option?
No, well, you can ask anything you want, but they're going to ignore you.
But what percentage? Actually, I think just 1%, or 1 out of 150 had alcohol.
Well, how do we know that those statistics are accurate? Our staff hasn't given those.
But the county doesn't have jurisdiction over permits and the sale of alcohol.
Just to clarify, what the county will be, or what environmental health will be returning to the board with, will be the program options. And so as we're looking at it in our early analysis of this, it was just directed to us of September 15th, but there'll be essentially 3 options. One option is to opt in, the other is to not, and the third would be to implement a pilot program to evaluate the program over the course of a period of time. So essentially that's what we'll be returning back with as far as the programmatic options.
Well, we can ask to kind of help with your concerns, Mr. Mayor, is may we have a pilot program and see how that goes. I mean, from what we know from the other counties is the alcohol thing is not a big deal, and just 1. Is that kind of, I'm saying pilot program to help.
If you want to make a motion.
Okay, so my motion will be we write the letter to the county supporting a pilot program, and then that's, we don't have any other suggestions unless we just say no alcohol, but I don't know if that helps us any. But it doesn't look like that's a big deal based upon other counties.
Mr. Mayor,
Pilot program gives us an opportunity.
Go ahead, Grab.
I hate to jump in while you guys are in the process of making motions and making decisions, but I think we heard some advice or some direction from the council to us about following up with county council and county staff. I think there's some value. There's some big unknowns, I think, right now, and I think there's some value, and we have time. You just heard from the director that we have until January. I think there's some value in at least getting some answers back on those issues. I think there's some value in staff contacting cities in Riverside County. I know the public speaker contacted the county of San Diego, but the county of San Diego doesn't do code enforcement in Corona and Murrieta, right? So we'll contact county or city folks. We'll get a better sense, and I think that will give the council more comfort and some more data that will be useful to you one way or the other. So I would recommend you actually hold off on writing a letter or sending a letter until we come back and re-agendize this.
All right, I make a motion to that effect.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We're going to take a quick 3 to 5 minute break to take care of some business. We'll be right back. Let's go ahead and get started again. The last administrative report, item 13, is a report on Senate Bill 9, and I'll ask our staff to tell us about this item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just give me a moment here. We'll have this PowerPoint up. Okay. So Senate Bill 9 was introduced by Senator Tony Atkins in December 2020, and this bill was signed by the governor in September of this year, in fact, on September 16th. This bill has two critical components, at least in staff's opinion. One, it requires ministerial approval of qualifying duplex units in single-family residential zones. Also, ministerial approval of qualifying urban lot splits to create two parcels of at least 1,200 square feet in single-family zones. To be clear on what a ministerial approval is, let's see, make sure I have the, give me a second here. There we go. This city cannot exercise any discretion when denying a project if it meets all of the state requirements in SB 9. And the city may not hold any public hearings on an urban lot split. Ministerial approval of a duplex is no more than 2 units on one lot in a single-family zone. So the single-family zoning that the city has in place is no longer in effect come January 1, 2022. What this means is that anybody who has a single-family home can create a duplex out of that single-family home. And the city has to approve that ministerially, which means just over the counter or through building permit process. Where this cannot occur, though, here in El Cajon would be in our very high fire severity zones and special flood hazard areas. El Cajon's fire zones are on the east and west of us, so in Fletcher Hill Canyon areas and in the Shadow Mountain east part of the city. We do have special flood hazard areas in parts of the valley floor, so that would eliminate some properties, but the majority could take advantage primarily on the valley floor. Some other limitations include the cannot demo affordable housing or rental housing within the past 3 years or an historical property. And if modifications are made to the existing single-family dwelling to make a duplex, no more than 25% of the exterior walls can be modified or removed. SB 9 also limits local authority to impose objective standards, and the city cannot impose standards that would physically preclude 2 units of at least 800 square feet. As it relates to setbacks, the existing structure or the single-family home that could be made into a duplex, the city cannot require any setbacks for that. So think, for example, if someone did take advantage of the urban lot split, they could put a fire-rated wall in the middle of the house and then run a new property line up the middle. So now that your single-family lot is now 2 lots with a home on each side. And the city cannot, and let me back up for a second there, for any new structures, the state has said that we cannot require more than a 4-foot setback on the side or rear. So 4 feet is no more than putting your hands out a little past your shoulders. That's the maximum setback that the city can require to the rear and side property lines. If the lot or the duplex is within a half mile of a transit corridor or a major bus stop or within 1 block of a car share, the city cannot require parking. So if you think of Broadway, Fletcher Parkway, East Main Street, El Cajon Boulevard, Magnolia, Mollison, those are major transit corridors, likely to have bus stops. If you take a half mile from those corridors, that's about 90% of the city if someone were to take advantage of SB 9 where the city could not require a parking space. So again, this would then put new vehicles out onto the street. So on the urban lot splits, so this has a sunset date of January 1, 2027. Again, the city must ministerially approve parcel maps in single-family zones that at least meet the following. Creates two parcels of roughly equal size, can't go less than a 40-60 split, and then can't have parcels any less than 1,200 square feet in order to meet the state provision to allow at least a house of 800 square feet. Urban lot splits have the same basic limitations as duplex, so think about the fire zones, flood zones. We don't have to deal with coastal or wetlands, which are other limitations for other cities. If an owner were to do an urban lot split, that owner could not split the property any further, and that same owner can't do the same to adjacent parcels. We believe this is an effort to keep developers at a minimum. The city can do the following. The city can require access to the right-of-way, so access to the street. Although the state says the city can impose an owner occupancy requirement, the law limits that to signing an affidavit saying that the owner will live on the property for at least 3 years. The city can prohibit short-term rentals of these urban lot splits, as well as for new duplexes that take advantage of the urban lot splits. The city can also prohibit prohibit ADUs and JDUs on these newly created parcels. So what's the effect of this? So if you look at someone who might be taking advantage of SB 9 and do a duplex, the primary unit can become 2 units by putting a firewall in the middle and creating two new units. Or someone could build a new house at the back of the property. They also can still have 2 ADUs for each of those 2 units, so that gives us a total of 4 units on a single-family zone property. If someone were to take advantage of the urban lot split, the result would be the same, up to 4 units. You could do 2 units of any kind on each newly created parcel. However, since the state does allow the city to prohibit ADUs, the result would still be 4 units on 2 newly created lots. So if you look at this in a combined effort, SB 9 again allows the city to prohibit ADUs or JDUs on each of these newly created parcels. The 2 primary units on each new lot, again, as I just explained, could result in up to 4 units. This is just a quick exhibit that we put together that could paint the example of a neighborhood if one were taking advantage of this. So your typical single-family zone property, we'll say 6,000 square feet with a modest house of about 2,000 square feet, normally looks like this on the valley floor, on the image on your left. If you look at the one on the right, you could see how your single-family neighborhood is turned into a multifamily neighborhood with the provisions of the urban lot split. So the one with the on the right image to the furthest left, where you see purple, you see an urban lot split up the middle, where a 6,000 square foot lot was split up the middle, and then you had 2 duplexes on each to give you 4 units total on this once single-family zone property that only had 1 single-family dwelling on it. This is again goes into effect January 1 of 2022. And staff is available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Questions? Yeah.
So I thought in the staff report, and I didn't see it in the PowerPoint, you cannot demolish market rate housing.
The law prohibits the demolition of market rate housing that's being rented for the last 3 years.
What about my house? A market rate house. Can I demolish my house and put a bunch of stuff on there?
If the city allows it. So the SB 9 gives the option to the city if they're willing to go beyond that 25% demolition limitation that's in SB 9.
So if a person wants to demolish their whole house, number one, they still have to live in one of those new units for the next 3 years. That seems kind of unlikely. Why are you going to move out of your 2,800 square foot house into a duplex that has 1,000 square feet unless it's possible. I don't think it's highly probable. The 3-year, I'm more worried about the incrementalism of this SB 9. I don't think we're going to see a lot of change because the owner has to live on there for 3 years. Once Tony Atkins sees that there's not the activity that she wanted in terms of new units, my prediction is she'll lift the 3-year residency requirement, and now developers will come in and do those kind of things. That's my prediction.
Tony, I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Does the law say that it's going to sunset in 27?
Pardon me. SB 9 urban lot split provision is set to terminate in 2027.
What does that mean? When you say it's going to sunset in 2017 or 2027, what does that mean?
What that means is that unless the legislature changes the law, urban lot splits will not be available under SB 9.
Okay, so the goal would be to get as many of these split lots out as much and as fast as possible before the sunset date, correct? Would be kind of the goal of Tony Atkins?
I think I can't speak for Tony Atkins,
no,
but our
that.
experience has been when there's a sunset date, a later law comes along to remove the sunset date.
Okay. My question is, what's stopping? I understand that a developer couldn't come in and do it to one house and then go next door and do it to the next house, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but what is stopping a developer doing one in each block, like going down Mollison and just doing it across, every other house, whatever? And can they buy? Okay, right now they have to. So, like on Mollison, they have all these houses. A developer can't come in and purchase those homes, like say over market, demolish them, and put in duplex. Does that make sense, what I said?
I understand what you're saying. A developer could come in, buy property, create a duplex out of the single-family home that's there.
Right.
Come back with a urban lot split, create land, use the land in the back to build another duplex. Now that property owner or that developer has 4 units on that property. That would probably be the most likely example.
Okay. So going down Mollison, we have all these single-family homes, and there's only a couple of instances, and I can only speak from, say, Bradley down to Broadway. There's only a couple of instances where there are duplexes. There's one next to the Nazarene Church that has a duplex in the front and a single family in the back. And then pretty much across the street, there's several little duplexes right there. We already have bad parking on Mollison. People leave their garbage cans out on Mollison every single day so that nobody parks in front of their house. I can see that this is going to be a problem, especially in that particular area, where a developer will come in and there's nothing stopping him from buying these houses that sometimes have a hard time selling, and they're on the market for a really long time. And so they come in, they buy a house here in this block, and they buy one down the street, and now they're building it up. Is there a height restriction?
So just to clarify, if a developer were to come in, the law requires the developer to live on the property if they take advantage of the urban lot split, not to create 2 homes on one single family zone property.
That's what I was asking before. Is like, can a developer just come in and do that? Is it only on vacant lots that they can do that?
The developer is under the law is required to sign an affidavit, and an affidavit only is what the law says. If they take advantage of the urban lot split, the developer does not have to live on the property if they buy the property and create 2 homes on the property, either by duplex or 2 detached units.
But they can demolish the house.
Yes.
To do that. So what's stopping them from doing that on, like, say, Mollison, and just turning every other block into duplexes?
It's certainly possible.
And then is there a height limit? So if they split that lot, are they remaining single-level homes, or can they build up?
They can certainly build up. The law, it appears to us that the law allows for the city to address some bulk development standards, such as height.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You know, to that point, Michelle, on our street, there's a 1 acre lot. Currently has one house on it. It's zoned RS3, I think it is. RS6, RS14. I'm going to pick a number and you just tell me when to stop, okay?
I believe that neighborhood is zoned RS14.
RS14. So you can put 3 houses on an acre, and it's approved zone. So a developer could come in today, wipe out the one house that's on that acre, and put 3 houses, and this is not part of SB 9. They can do that today. But if they want to split that 1 acre into 2 different lots and do this 2 and 2, they have to live in one of those houses.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Let's see if there's any speaker cards on this item.
We do, sir. We have one from Dr. Alan Nordholm.
Alan?
Thank you, City Council members. Thank you, staff, for allowing me a few minutes to speak on this very topic. You have found a homeowner who is very concerned about this SB 9. The day before I deployed to Afghanistan, I bought a house in El Cajon, a single-family residence house. I did that with purpose because El Cajon is a great community to live in. Okay, I think we can all agree to that. But when you allow this type of legislation to occur, it destroys the single-family residence opportunities. Its intent, I think, and one can only discern from the oracles, that the idea is to provide some affordable housing for our community, which we definitely need to have. But I bought a house, a single-family house, not to have duplexes by me, and in deference to our previous speakers, not to have a restaurant behind me and beside me, okay? I did not do that. So I would encourage you, with your city attorney and the city manager, to look at the consequences of this behavior. One is I'd encourage you to think about enjoining any lawsuit that goes forward to challenge this state bill. I'd encourage the city to think about that carefully. The second thing is this has the unintended consequences of affecting city items such as plumbing, because when you have 2 or more, you're going to have to attach it to something, right? Electricity. Who's going to bear the cost of those items? It's going to be the city, because they're going to have to dig up the streets to build new plumbing. Think about those items. Again, I'm just a homeowner. I'm representing myself here, but I think if I went into my neighborhood, I could find people that would support my position on this. So I encourage you to carefully think about that, because this is one of the last bastions in California to have this sort of idea go forward. I'm just telling you that, okay? So be wise in your decisions.
Well,
I know there are homeowners that are with me on this.
Just to warn you so you don't get disappointed, we're not going to be voting on anything today. This is just,
I know.
You're just telling us what's happened to us.
Didn't you say at the beginning of this you want people who are censors? I'm a censor.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, and I, for one, 100% agree with you, but
I understand. I just wanted to give you a homeowner's perspective.
I appreciate that.
You know, the danger of this whole policy of density also has public safety implications.
Exactly.
And, you know, we're packing all these people into a smaller area going up. And in a time of a natural disaster, it's going to be really hard to evacuate people. A couple of years ago, during the Friars Ridge Overpass project, a contractor hit a regional gas line, like a 24-inch gas line, and they evacuated everybody within a half a mile in my office was in that half a mile. I didn't get home till 6 o'clock, and I left at noon, and we just took out our chairs and sat in the parking lot and watched a transit bus move 100 feet in 3 hours. This density thing is a public safety risk, and I think we're in agreement that 25% demolishing thing, we're like, well, if you demolish more than 25%, no. So I think we're all in agreement. We're with you. Don't change the character of what a city is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's its personality. It's zoned for different personalities in different areas. And now the state is saying, whoosh, we're going to wipe it out. And you got to do this.
Yeah, another comment real quick. The council voted unanimously, I think maybe a year ago, to join a coalition of small cities. And the coalition is called California Cities for Local Control. And it's specifically designed around these types of bills coming from Sacramento, basically wiping out our jurisdictional approval for anything with our communities. And the coalition drafts letters of opposition, and they present arguments like yours as to why this is bad for communities. So we unanimously joined that coalition to say, hey, we need some local control. If you don't give us local control, then what's the point of us having local government? So we got out ahead of it early. So,
yeah, Alan, I agree with you completely. I'm a retired real estate appraiser, and you start popping other units in everybody's backyard, and it does change the character of the neighborhood and makes your single-family home worth less.
Well, what I'll do is if I decide to sell my house and I know Mr. Goebel there is a developer and he can put 4 places on it, I'm going to say to myself, do I sell it for the price I bought it, or do I multiply that by 3? And I'll give him 50. I'll give him 10%, for goodness. I think you all know what I'm saying. I think it's intended. I think we all want affordable housing. I think that's true. But the mechanism to get there is not SB 9. It just is not. It's not going to happen. That's my perspective as a homeowner.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for allowing me the time to
Michelle,
talk.
did you want to say something?
Just real briefly, I've seen, not documentation, but I've seen some of the comments or thoughts from legislators and from others that basically they want us out of our single-family homes. They don't want, you shouldn't own anything, and you should be happy about not owning anything. And that's kind of the sentiment that I see going through on social media, which, how much credibility can you give to it? But, there's a lot of people out there that don't want people owning single-family homes. They don't want us owning property. They want you out of your car, and they want you living in multifamily residences, taking the bus or walking or riding your bike. That's the reality that they want to push. And I think that it's really difficult for citizens to even have a voice in that. I mean, the American dream is you work hard, you save your money, and you buy a home. And that's the American dream. And that's why people come from all over the world to come to the United States to do that. Now, California is making its, mandates and telling people that they can't do this. And they're telling governments that they can't do this. But what happened to the American dream? And this is just a commentary, and I could go on forever, but it's the American dream that's kind of being squished down right now. And I agree with you, as well as I'm sure most of my colleagues here. And, it's sad, and I would fight for it as well, to fight against it. Personally, I am afraid that we're not going to have much choice, and that's all I'm going to say.
Well, let's put the firewall around El Cajon. Thank you for your time.
You talking secession?
No, not there, sir. Not there. Thank you very much.
All right. So no motions needed for this item. It's just information. So, thanks, Tony. Nice report. Commissioner reports. There are no commissioner reports on today's agenda. Item 14 is my activities, and it is as reported. Now we're at activities reports for council members. Councilmember Goebel.
As reported with the 30-second comment from last Friday's Sandag meeting, they're talking about now when you have a 3-lane freeway, taking one of those lanes away, making it a managed lane, and using the right shoulder as a new fourth lane. And I got to tell you, they are off the rails on this one. They will need federal approval because it's a federal highway, federal funds involved. They'll need state approval, but they're going to go for it.
They're going to use the shoulder.
And I bet they get it.
It's
Yeah. They're
taking away a general purpose travel lane. They're taking it away from us.
They
We
don't
paid
want
for it.
Look, Sandag does not want you to drive cars.
I know.
And that's until we grasp that and internalize it, we're going to always be shocked.
Well, the gas leak I mentioned in Mission Valley, they wanted us to get out of there by public transit, by rail. It's not operating when there's a gas leak around. It's going to spark the fire. So unless they have helicopters waiting for us, I don't know how we're going to get out of here there before it blows up.
Well, they want less people too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Councilmember Mitchell.
As reported.
Councilmember and Mayor Pro Tem Gary Kendrick.
As reported.
And Mr. Ortiz.
I have to submit mine verbally. On 10/6, I took a tour of the Canoe Academy here in El Cajon. Obviously, on the 9th of October, I was at Foodie Fest, and then yesterday, the 11th, I was at the Republican Party Central Committee meeting.
Okay. There are no joint council member reports and no general information items on today's agenda. There are no first or second readings of ordinances and no closed session items on today's agenda. And this brings us to adjournment, the regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agencies of the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 12th day of October 2021, is adjourned until Tuesday, October 26, 2021 at 3 o'clock p.m. We'll see you there.